This is Gibraltar Today, live on Radio Gibraltar and also on GBC Television. Thank you for joining us. We're going to return now to a conversation about artificial intelligence. Moataz Ziani is here and James Rovegno is still here. And we're also joined by David Barodi and Joe Lathy, who will bring in on photography. But before the break, Moataz, we were talking about ChatGPT, which is a very popular application. And I think we all agree has really sort of exploded the interest in artificial intelligence and has a lot of different applications. But before we started, we asked in the GBC newsroom ChatGPT, which is available for free. We asked it to generate 5 short sentences explaining why young people in Gibraltar should be excited by artificial intelligence technology. And ChatGPT said, AI can provide new and innovative ways for young people in Gibraltar to solve problems and to tackle challenges in various fields such as healthcare, finance, and education. And this sort of, there are other, it gave us 5 short sentences, that's just one of them, but we were saying generally the mood is one of excitement among young people. So tell me a little bit about, as an engineer, about some of the applications that you think AI is most exciting on.
Well, when it comes to ChatGPT, I think it's kind of like a gateway AI when it comes to this technology. Loads of people know how to use it because it's got such a simple user interface. It's ask a question, get a response. And because of its application, many people are so excited to use it. You can use it in answering prompts such as these. You can ask it in solving issues and problems. You can give it professional titles such as you are a consultant in this type of field of business. And it could act as that consultant. Honestly, it's
crazy,
endless. It's endless, the possibilities.
But I don't want to be the voice of concern here, but I am going to be, because let's bring James in. I mean, doesn't it sort of worry you that technology could effectively pretend to be a person and potentially deceive a third person, not the person who asked it, but maybe deceive a third person?
Yeah, I mean, that's undoubtedly the case on numerous occasions, but there are, like, for example, one that comes to mind was certain AI was targeted to running a business, and it came up, it was blocked by, those the captcha tests, which, like,
yep. The ones
press the bus or press the bridge or...
click on, it gives you 9 images and it says click on the 3 which have a bus.
Yeah, and it couldn't get past them. But
interesting.
What it did do, which is where it really shocks some people, is that it went on a website called Fiverr. I'm not sure if you are aware of what Fiverr is.
I'm not, no.
It's like this, a website where you can pay people to do stuff for you. So, like, usually it's called Fiverr, okay. It's a small number of money, but and actually pay someone to do the captcha test for them.
That's
so
amazing.
The AI itself reached out to someone. It paid someone through the bank account connected to the computer to pass the captcha test for it to carry on working. So that just shows how broad of scale AI can use. And
it is artificial intelligence, and Moataz made the point earlier that generally we're asking the application to do something in the first instance. So the prompt it comes from a human. But let me bring in David and Joe, who are going to talk to us about how AI is being used in your everyday lives, photography, programming, coding. But generally, as a general point, isn't that a little bit worrying that a computer could do that already?
I don't know. You saw 2 of my images on Instagram a couple of days ago. One of a wrinkly old man in black and white, and one of a out of focus sort of exhibition centre, and you liked them.
I did.
And they're both artificially generated. In fact, I had to dumb down the image because it was way better, or originally produced by the ChatGPT, than I could ever produce. So I had to dumb it down to sort of my level of expertise, and you fell for it.
I must say that, like, I knew about your conversation with Kelly, so I can't remember if I liked it before or after I knew that you were using AI to create images. But generally, I don't like not been told that it's AI.
That's correct.
So I like photographers like yourself who generate what I think is a realistic take on the world around you and the world around us. And I like to see how you've interpreted that world through an image. And the idea that you are cheating me with an image that isn't real actually worries me a bit.
I did, and a few hours later, I edited and said totally created by AI. But another example, this morning there was a willow wobbler outside my balcony, and the sun hadn't come out, and it was low light conditions, and I took the photograph. It was some distance away, but I wanted to get this image of the willow wobbler, so I put it onto Adobe Lightroom, which is what I use to edit my photographs, and used AI to denoise the image and to sharpen it. And it hasn't created an image, it's just made an image which I took visually more pleasing without changing the aesthetic of the image.
So that I feel is a good use of AI and an extension of what computers were already doing for us, right?
That's indeed, but it now does it better than I could denoise it. And I think it's no different to having Wikipedia pages for research or having online libraries where previously you had a piece of paper. James talked about this earlier. I think it's a tool. Stuart Harrison from Digital Skills Academy called this the fifth industrial revolution, and this is exactly where we are.
Okay, so let's bring in Joe Lathy, who is the GBC Newsroom's graphics coordinator extraordinaire, because you do lots of different things under that title, Joe, including writing code. Tell us a little bit about how you've managed to incorporate Chat GPT and other AI into your workflow.
Well, it's been especially useful in news because we try to bridge the gap a lot between sort of the past and stuff that's happened in the past so that we can highlight what's happening now. So for example, the photos from the general strike in 1972 were all in black and white. And I was able to use Photoshop. It's got built-in neural networks in beta at the moment, but they did a fantastic job of colorizing them. So it was able to sort of bridge the gap of the little bit of the disconnects that younger people have with, let's say, black and white photos, make them a little bit more relatable.
And even for people who might be familiar with the images at the time, you're inviting them to see them in a different way, and there is an element of cheating, if you like, because those weren't necessarily the colours that the shirt that the main speaker was wearing wasn't necessarily that colour. His skin might have been a slightly different tone, but it does breathes new life into an image, doesn't it?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, to a certain extent, photography and photos are a representation of, well, they're not an accurate representation of reality. Let's say you take a long exposure photograph or something in a different spectrum that doesn't necessarily represent exactly
like
what
infrared,
we see.
for example.
Exactly, like infrared. So it is kind of an expression of the photographer. I don't really think that using something like ChatGPT or another AI is significantly changing anything as long as it works within certain parameters.
I suppose the important thing is, for an authenticity, and especially in the news context, is to say when this has been done.
Yes, correct. If it's, I think, for something that's more artistic, I think it's absolutely fine. But when it comes to things like news, and we are obviously trying to be as accurate as possible, that's where you really have to be careful and make sure we're as accurate as possible.
And let's bring in James and Moises again on this topic, given that we're talking about news and the application of Chat GPT. It does have limitations and other AI. It works on algorithms. And sometimes it does what is referred to as a hallucination, and basically it generates something which is completely fictitious, but the language model thinks is more or less in keeping with the general narrative. So we asked Chat GPT because we were excited about it. Well, we thought, well, what if we asked it to introduce a viewpoint programme with the serving Member of Parliament, Daniel Feetham? What will it generate? And I don't remember the exact question that we gave it, but it did hallucinate, and it did come up with something which was completely fabricated, which Daniel Feetham had never said or done. And of course we sort of filtered it and we didn't use it. It was just to see what it would come back with. But it does make it's just to illustrate the point that there are hallucinations still, aren't there, Moises?
Absolutely. And we're not saying that the AIs and the Chat GPTs in the world are perfect, 100% perfect and working right. Like, there are still many issues to be solved, from problematic questions that may be asked and responded with to what it actually pulls from the data set, because the data set is unknown to us. As James said earlier, there is a lot of information being processed, but we don't know where this information is coming from. So this leads to AI bias, it leads to AI problems, and even some of the responses are just based on similarities. So you don't get an answer that you might want, and you have to find out where to find the true answer within the answers it gives.
And that's an extension of a conversation that we've already been having in society about, for example, how social media like Facebook can create echo chambers in which you hear more of the things that you like rather than just more of the things that are out there, and also more of the things which are controversial, not necessarily true. I don't know if we can bring you in on that, James.
Yeah, well, what you were saying before about the hallucinations, you have to remember ChatGPT is a form of AI, and it's a single form of AI. There's many, many forms of AI, and it's actually a free form of AI. There's billions on billions on billions of pounds and across the world being invested into AI. So you have to take into perspective, if ChatGPT is available for us for free, you have to imagine the people investing that money, what forms of AI do they have at their hands. So I'm sure at our level it's scouring the internet and it's getting, there are some faults, but you have to imagine the people who are investing these billions of pounds, they must have a form of AI themselves that they are using, and probably the main public are completely unaware about.
Yeah. And the other thing that sort of, while we're on concerns, is the idea that it's AI technology is to a certain extent a black box, or they are black boxes, right? Because we don't fully understand how they work, even the people who program them. David, you're nodding along. I don't know if you want to come in on that point.
Yeah, it's interesting because my other work is as National Coordinator on AML CFT, and I use
anti-money laundering and counter-financing of terrorism.
My apologies for that. But yesterday, the Gibraltar Association of Compliance Officers sent a reminder to all members to be aware that because it's a black box, there are data protection issues. And a firm may be very tempted to put in an email that's received from a customer and said, can I have a response for this? Which you can do very well. But the moment you do that, you don't know where it is ending up in. And that breaches all sorts of data protection. And Italy and I think Greece have now moved to ban ChatGPT. And as a result, as a response of that, ChatGPT have now toggled a bit in their software which says, don't send this information to the server. To meet with this sort of potential ban issue on data protection. So there are all sorts of ethical issues yet.
Okay, and we're almost out of time, but let me just ask you very quickly, David, and Joe, if you like, for some concluding comments. And do you expect that this, David, is something that is going to need regulation?
No, I think just like the internet, when it grew up and became a source of information for us, this is a tool that needs to be used, but like every tool, it needs to be used responsibly. Okay, Joe, a closing comment. Why is AI a good thing for photography?
For photography, well, just a last example, even at GBC, we're using AI to upscale all of our archive footage as well. So it's actually creating a very usable system for us to make all of our old archive footage much more accessible
by
to the
removing
public.
Noise, for example.
By removing noise and upscaling, make it much more accessible for the public to enjoy.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you so much to Joe Lathy and David Brody. James, some closing thoughts from you. Why are you excited about AI?
Well, it's revolutionary technology, and I've read articles on professionals in fields like climate change and in fields like healthcare, and it's thought our best chances at this given state in time is adapting to AI and using AI to help solve climate problems and to help solve problems of cancer and treatments and new drugs, and that field is very highly adapting to AI and seems to be our best chances to advance in those fields.
And last word to Moatez, who was the initial impetus, or gave us the impetus to organise today's discussion. And thank you for doing so, Moatez. We know that you're excited about it. We know that you've addressed some of the concerns. You don't think that AI is going to, for example, take people's jobs?
I wouldn't phrase it like that. Because AI will do some jobs that people would do nowadays. However, I wouldn't say it would take jobs. In fact, it would probably add jobs, because We need people who will work with AI or develop the content for AI or even monitor what AI produces. So it like any other job, it is a technology that we need to adapt to.
Muattaz Ziani, thanks so much for joining us today, and also to James Ravenia, David Barodi and Joe Lathy. A really interesting discussion, and it's such a big topic that we're going to have to bring you in for part 2 soon. But that's where we leave Gibraltar today. Thanks a lot for tuning in on Radio Gibraltar and on GBC Television. Do stay with us. Next on Radio Gibraltar, Ben Lynch. On Radio Gibraltar Plus, Teresa Gonçalves. Stay with us and enjoy your warm Wednesday afternoon.
Give us your vision and home